For instance, talking about real changes, I can tell you about a change that actually happened 3,000 years ago. There was a point in time on a mountaintop or somewhere around a mountaintop, I believe it happened in India, actually, where I was leading a group of people, and there were some blind people or something else like that. And there were two groups, and one of them was stronger than the other one. And something about that. I forget exactly, but basically, in those days, about 3,000 years ago, you would have killed the blind or the weak, and that's just what you did. And I was expected to do that. And about 2,000 years ago, I did not do that. In fact, I ordered them not to kill or hurt the weak, and that we were actually going to feed the weak and the blind. And this actually happened 3,000 years ago, I believe, 3 to 4,000 years ago. And it was a substantial change, and they asked me, well, what should we do with them? And I said, well, we can teach them a skill. And it happened somewhere around India. And what happened was they started teaching blind people. There were only a couple blind people there. And they went around and rounded up any other blind people from around the lands and brought them to this one place where I would take care of them myself with my people. And I had some people there. And they created farming and stuff. And the blind people, I believe, possibly learned how to farm blind and how to do tasks being blind. And they were more than happy to help because they could not feed themselves. And I actually tasked a special group of hunters to actually hunt for these people. And they hunted for themselves, and they hunted for the blind people. And I could feel back then the doubt creeping in that that I had made a bad decision or I was not the right leader. Anyway, though, years go by, and the farm blossoms, and the blind people take care of the farm, and I believe it's kind of one of those random weird things. And I believe what happened was, and I think the British might have been there or might have found these people and documented this, but the blind people actually contributed a significant amount, and my one tribe actually does really well, and even better than the other tribe. And later on, the other tribe, I think, comes to join my tribe, actually, back then. And I think it's up on a mountaintop someplace or somewhere. I don't really remember it. Like I said, it's 3,000 years ago. But it's the point where I started to change everything to where the weak were protected. And I believe the original Hitler, or Hitler's dad, the original horse trainer, was actually there, and he was actually kind of like an Indian chief or someone, I think, or something like that. And he was a horse breeder, and this would have been ancient times, and he bred horses. And I suggested, and I think I started my whole project as far as making humanity a little better looking. And they actually did some breeding where they put people together that were more attractive, and that's where that actually started. And it actually happened 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. And it was something that's the way life was back then, before I changed some other things. And that back then, though, I was the fear, or it was communism, and that's the way life was. And some people looked down on me, but then our society started doing really well. Well, mostly because I was changing things as well. I was having some things done. The blind people were helping, and blind people are a lot more useful than most people realized. And they actually help with other things. I think fish. They made some baskets or something. I forget exactly what was going on. It was a long time ago, like I said, and I'm surprised I remember anything about it. But when you talk about Hitler, and Hitler being a horse trainer. Hitler's father was a horse trainer, or his father's father, really. If you look at Hitler and who you think Hitler is, and you look back 2 generations, there was a horse trainer. And he was actually a horse trainer because I wanted him to train and breed horses. And that's what he did. He bred horses to be stronger and have different characteristics, and he was an expert breeder. And he actually even probably changed or bred humanity a little bit. Because I wanted some things changed, better teeth and some other things, and they bred humanity to be a little bit differently. And this actually happened about 2 generations before the person you know as Hitler. That was his son's son. Or 3 generations back. Although Hitler might be about 8 generations back, actually. The real Hitler horse trainer was about 8 generations back. And yes, it's true. And that's the way humanity was, and we were all communists, and that's when I actually created communism. That's when communism actually started. And it's way before Mein Kampf or any of the other crap. Or books even. Like I said, I paid for Mein Kampf and those other books. I wanted people to... I wanted to instill some good values in people, and I may have made a mistake. They printed some books, and I thought they'd be good, and I don't know. But then again, that's the way perspective was back then, and it actually, more than anything, shouts to the way people looked at things. And that was considered acceptable. In fact, those were considered the best values ever. And I thought, well, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe no. I have a doubt, I said. And so then we tried to adjust it a little bit differently. And, back then I was a supreme ruler. Absolute Chinese, all countries. Anything I said go because everyone knew who I was. So, and I was being careful about what I asked for. And nobody backtalked to me at all. Or else they would slit their own throat on purpose. They'd be like, I'm sorry. That's the level of loyalty I had back then. There was no question. So, like I said, at one point it was almost scary loyalty. But that's because they knew I had saved them, and they knew I was going to take them to bigger and better places. Anyway, that was a different time and a different perspective. I continued to change things. If I wanted to live a good life, I should have stayed there. But I continued to change things, and I thought, well, maybe this other perspective or this other way of being would be better. And I continued to change things. And people love me still, and knew who I was and knew what I had done. Anyway, and I encouraged more communication between people, because they still weren't really communicating together. They were communicating with me, but not really each other. They were working at my direction. Everything was done by me. I used to build a dam, they asked how, and I would have to tell them how exactly I wanted it built, which was fine. We built a lot of dams, we did a lot of things. I was a very good engineer and architect. But then later on I thought, well, maybe we can, and things were changing slowly, but then I was like, well, maybe this other way would be a better way. Maybe you guys should communicate together more. And when I did that, everything went and it was like 3,000 years just passed by. Well, not quite, because I was still like bouncing around. I was like, build this, build this, build this. I mean, it was kind of weird because it was like twofold. Like, I moved 3,000 years ahead, but yet I still was back there. But my present day was up here. It was like I switched from back there to 3,000 years in the future, and still directing back there, working to the future, to where I go into myself. Something like that, if you wanted how the perspective was. And I'm at the 10-minute limit, so I have to cut it off now.